Same pull the trigger to kill your son, masturbates in memory of you.
All right, please. That's all your client has to say, Mr. Cruz.
He doesn't deserve to breathe the air that I breathe.
That child stole my baby's life, and he should never be able to do this to anyone ever again.
T.J. Lane. Back in 2012, T.J. Lane opened fire at the Chardon High School in the town of Chardon, Ohio, with a goal to kill the person who was dating his crush at the time. T.J. took it upon himself to end the life of the person, the romantic rival. He was, by all accounts, a troubled kid who ended up killing 3 other students and wounding 3 others. It was one of the survivors who testified against Lane and identified him to be the killer. TJ's trial was brief. There was no question as to who committed the unspeakable act, but there was no remorse in the eyes of the young man. He was living with his grandparents as his father, Thomas Lane Jr., was in and out of prison for most of his son's life, primarily because of the acts of violence against women. His mother was not different. She too was arrested at various times for domestic violence. His schoolmates talked about how TJ was a normal guy, with others even calling him a kind person. TJ shot 5 male students and a female student before running out of the cafeteria, only to be tackled by a teacher named Joseph and a coach named Frank. Even though the popular belief is that it was meant for a romantic rival, he never made his motive clear in the court, so no one knows why he did it. Nevertheless, he was given 3 life sentences, 1 for each student who died in the cafeteria from the bullets he shot. Well, look at the kid during his conviction. He did something very strange that made the headlines. Have a look.
Same pull the trigger to kill your son, masturbates in memory of you.
All right, please. That's all your client has to say, Mr. Cruz.
Jonathan Perales. Jonathan was sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. He was convicted for the death of homeowner Michael Clayton Robinson, who was 51 at the time. It took just 3 hours for the jury to find him guilty. Watch this.
To shoot at me and 2 gunshots to my, I guess 1 to my chest and 1 to my arm. And by that time I was, I guess by the garage door.
Both of the men were armed and they exchanged 2 shots each. Jonathan justified that he shot Robinson, but it was in his effort to defend himself as Robinson shot first. He said that he had no intention to hurt anyone and he was high on Xanax and was looking for stuff to steal. Jonathan just wanted to steal some stuff from the house, but the owners discovered that there was an intruder. Robinson grabbed a weapon and demanded the intruder leave his property, to which Jonathan replied and said he was leaving, but the house was dark and he could not find a way out. He opened the door, which was Robinson's bedroom, by mistake, and that led to the murder.
If you were going in to commit a crime at 2 o'clock in the morning and you're carrying a weapon, then you have intent to use that weapon.
Was he stupid in most everything he did? For sure. But he didn't go in there saying, I am going to kill him.
If we allow going to sleep in our own home to become a risk, what do we have left?
During the conviction, the family had to say something. His daughter, who got recently married, had to walk down the aisle without her father. Here's what the grieving family had to say.
I recently got married this summer, and I had to walk down without my father next to me.
The best big brother and son. He was patient and protective of us.
Despite the horrific crime, the grieving family chose to forgive Jonathan for his crime, and this is something for which Jonathan's mother is going to be very grateful.
It could have gone both ways, but God chose my son to live, and I believe this is his second chance.
Nikolas Lindsay. Nikolas, who was born on the 18th of January 1995, is a teenager convicted of murder in the first degree of a law and enforcement officer from the St. Petersburg Police Department. He already had a trial and record for nonviolent crimes such as grand theft and trespassing. He had missed 40 days of school here, and he attended school on the day of the shooting. It was on February 21st of 2011 when Officer David Crawford, who was 46 at the time, was responding to a call of a suspicious person near Tropicana Field late that night. The distress call stated that a man was holding a brake in his backyard and then jumped the fence, and his actions looked like he might be a burglar. Officer Crawford, when reached the area, he did spot the person, and so he got out of the vehicle. Officer Donald J. Ziegler, at the moment, exactly at 10:37 p.m., reported an exchange of gunfire.
Quarter B, I got shots fired over here. Shots fired. I got an officer shot. 4th Avenue South. Tell him to step it up.
He went to check and he found Crawford lying near his cruiser. He reported that Crawford was shot multiple times at close range after reaching for the notepad. This led to a massive manhunt from different agencies, with more than 200 officers going around Tampa Bay to hunt the suspect. The manhunt came to an 10-the-night office every 22 when they received tips from the community. A 16-year-old boy was arrested after the police force raided a home, and it was Nikolas Lindsay. The way he described the event was very different from the evidence. Eventually, his information aligned with the evidence police had already gathered. He said that he threw the gun into a nearby river as he broke down and cried. But later in the sentencing, he must have realized that he's gonna live all of his remaining life in prison. You could see his reaction, and that wasn't a remorse. Have a look.
I did not do it, and I'm telling you, I did not do it. Who did it? So it's gonna be okay, son. It's gonna be okay, son. You got to tell the truth, son.
We're right here.
I was not there.
He's trying to help you.
This is our point.
You need to talk to us.
You're doing the right thing right now. You're owning up to your responsibility. It's okay, son. This is the price we pay for the things we do.
Kevin Eastman. A man from Colorado was sentenced to life imprisonment for brutally murdering his ex-girlfriend and her new lover. The attack was so brutal that he nearly decapitated the new lover. He was found guilty of 2 counts of first-degree murder, 2 counts of tampering with the deceased human body, and 2 counts of tampering with physical evidence. Scott Session, a 53-year-old man, was found dead near the road. Scott was a well-known northern Colorado musician who sang and spread trumpet as one of the main members of the Denver band, the Movers and Shakers. Eastman was arrested about a week later in connection with Sessions passing as part of the investigation. When the officers realized that Frank and Eastman had a volatile relationship together, that's when they were sure that Eastman was the guy. Both sides agreed that Eastman and Frank's prior relationship was toxic and volatile. Prosecutors construed it as abusive. For example, prosecutor Steve Wren said Eastman once yanked hair out of Frank's head. The cycle of violence started in 2015, he said. They produced a search warrant to search Eastman's house, and now the deputies found in the body of Heather Franks. The family members addressed the court during Thursday's sentence hearing. Allison Weldon, Scott's biological sister, appeared virtually to read a victim impact statement and said she didn't get enough time with her brother. "When I look at my son, I see my brother," Weldon said through sobs. After 5 former musicians who played with or were friends with Sessions also spoke about the impact he had on their lives, Frank's son, Alexander McLaughlin, addressed the court. "My mom was more than just my mom. She was my best friend. The memories we had together I will cherish forever. I miss her every day and will continue to miss her every day," McLaughlin said through tears. Watch this.
The verdict reads, "We, the jury, find the defendant, Kevin Dean Eastman, guilty of murder in the first degree after deliberation. As follows, as it relates to tampering with physical. We, the jury, find the defendant, Kevin Dean Eastman, guilty of tampering with physical. People on behalf of, and Mr. Eastman, that may want to speak.
And I am doing this for you, and I do not care if you do not believe me. I am very sorry for what I did, and I have to live with it every day. And that if I were to get a second chance, I will do everything in my power to try to help others. But I have to live with this every day, and it brings me nightmares, and I can't live with myself sometimes. But I try to push through because I know that's what you guys would want me to do. And I'm trying my best to maintain my composure, and I just want you to know I'm really sorry. I believe it's your decision to decide where I go and whether I live or die. Not the jury's. I believe it's your decision. I'm sorry.
Nikolas Cruz. 17 families berate him as an evil person, coward, monster, and subhuman, and lead the jury to give the teen a painful death. Nikolas sat there with no emotion as Circuit Judge Elizabeth Scherer pronounced 34 consecutive life sentences one by one as she stumbled on the first one, building up the courage for what she was going to announce. 1 each for the slain 14 students and 3 staff members and the 17 he wounded during the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School massacre, which was located in suburban Fort Lauderdale. He pled guilty to 17 counts of first-degree murders and 17 counts of first-degree attempted murder. The jury went on to sentence them to life in prison without the possibility of parole, which made all the family of the victims very angry. The families thought it was not justice to let Nikolas. Many of them wanted him to a painful demise and lamented that he could not be sentenced to death. Do we now have closure? Let me be clear, absolutely not, said Dr. Al-Hadef, whose 14-year-old daughter Alyssa was killed when Cruz fired into her classroom. What I see is that the system values the animal's life over the 17 now dead. Worse, we sent the message to the next killer out there that the death penalty would not be applied to mass killing. This is wrong and needs to be fixed immediately. These are the words of the victims, and there are many others. Have a look.
Disgusted with those jurors. That animal suffers every day of his life in jail.
We thought that we were going to get the death penalty today. It's so upsetting to hear that one individual prevented that from happening.
Pressing the barrel of his weapon to my daughter's chest, daughter's face, around our home, in my dreams. And I miss her very much.
In prison, I hope and pray he receives the kind of mercy from prisoners that he showed to my daughter and the 16 others.